In the serene forests of Cantabria, Maria Carmen sought solace from a chaotic world. With dreams of tranquil nature walks and elusive wildlife, she ventured deep into the wilderness, unaware of the profound twist her adventure was about to take. As she navigated the slippery stones of a rushing river, a single misstep sent her tumbling into the frigid waters. Struggling to stay afloat, her cries for help dissolved into the void of the untouched forest. Just as hope began to fade, a colossal shadow emerged on the riverbank, a wild bear. Maria's heart pounded with terror as she glimpsed the hulking figure, its gaze cold and unyielding. Fear seized her as the bear's massive form loomed closer. Is this enormous creature a looming threat, or is something even darker at play? What does the bear want with her? Stay tuned as we uncover the truth behind this terrifying encounter. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the rest of this gripping story. For countless centuries, untamed beasts and mankind have lived side by side. Human interaction with these wild beings occasionally results in catastrophic outcomes. However, ordinarily, a respectful distance is maintained by both sides. While some beasts persist as significant threats to humans, protective steps have been implemented. In many instances, beleaguered animals have no choice but to rely on human intervention for help and sustenance. However, what if these roles were reversed? Would these animals reciprocate this human kindness, or would their instincts spell disaster? This thought-provoking question was presented to Maria Carmen while she vacationed in the picturesque Cantabria region in Spain. Having recently completed her academic pursuits, Maria decided to indulge in a sabbatical before officially embarking on her professional journey. Before fully stepping into the responsibilities of work and impending family life, she wished to experience diverse global cultures. Consequently, she set out on a year-long globe-trotting adventure, ultimately landing in Cantabria, Spain. As opposed to her peers, who might have chosen beachside relaxation and sunbathing as their holiday preference, Maria had a unique type of vacation in mind. A true explorer at heart, she opted to delve into the magnificence of nature and partake in unparalleled experiences. She had long envisioned visiting this stunning locale, dreaming of meandering through lush greenery, taking leisurely walks on golden sands, and immersing herself in the pristine blue waters of rivers and seas. She also anticipated encounters with wild fauna, given her affinity for animals. One eventful day, Maria enthusiastically proceeded deep into the heart of the forest on her chosen adventure. After treading for several miles, she pitched her tent with the intent of spending the night amidst nature's bounty. Engulfed by Mother Nature, she could never have anticipated the deep connection she was about to form with the natural surroundings. Maria generated a campfire with a flint, consumed a modest meal, and retired for the night, completely oblivious of the remarkable forthcoming events of the subsequent day. The next day, eager to explore the forest more, Maria wanted to forage for some edible fauna, like berries or mushrooms, that she could toss into her modest cooking vessel. Additionally, she harbored hopes of experiencing first-hand encounters with indigenous ibex, never before seen by her. Venturing hundreds of yards, Maria savored the refreshing woodland breeze. Little did she know, lurking in the shadows was a risk that was about to turn her serene outing into bone-chilling horror. Initially, everything was going smoothly and aligned with her plans. She came across common woodland critters, but no sight of any mountain goats, though. Stumbling upon a dense bush of tantalizing raspberries, she gathered a handful and proceeded. Soon she arrived at a wide and deep river that cut through the woods. Despite the journey, Maria was unwilling to concede. A bunch of mushrooms had caught her eye on the other side, and although the variety was unclear, she was certain they were not poisonous. Fortuitously, rocks dotted the river's edge, forming makeshift stepping stones. These were exceedingly slick, but she was confident in her agility. Mirroring a leapfrog, she hopped from the shore to the first stone, then the next. But a misstep on the third jump, and her foot slipped off the moist moss, and she tumbled into the water. Contrary to the warm, sunny day, the river had a biting chill. Her body began seizing up in the icy cold water, sending her spluttering for air as she breached the surface. Maria was gripped by a sudden paralysis, her ability to move thwarted, her lungs filled with water, the urgency of her predicament now striking her. In a frenzied effort, she tried reaching for a rock to haul herself out, but the overwhelming current and slippery rocks were working against her. Helplessly, she was swept downstream. In a desperate fight against the cold water that was numbing her limbs, she struggled to keep her head surfaced. Her feeble efforts barely made any progress. She exerted herself as much as she could and cried for assistance. But in this uninhabited wilderness, her yells went unheard. Now faced with a formidable predicament, she was entirely alone. In stark contrast, a while ago, her solitude was a blissful reprieve from the urban chaos. As the water pulled her along, rocks scratched through her attire, scratching her as well. With her arms shielding her head, she attempted to swim towards the shore in vain. Her limbs succumbed to the numbing cold, and her hopes lay out of reach. Overwhelmed by her dire circumstances, Maria watched as life began to ease out of her grasp. Each time her head was forced beneath the surface, she felt despair in her heart. Maria concluded that she was going to perish in the water. Finally, her lifeless body would be carried out to sea, following the river's natural course towards the ocean. But what occurred next was beyond her wildest imagination. Out of nowhere, a gigantic wild bear made its appearance on the riverbank. It detected the floundering human figure in the water, which only heightened Maria's distress. Usually, Maria would yell to startle the bear, making it withdraw back into its woodland habitat. She was cognizant of the presence of wild bears in the vicinity and had prepped herself for such confrontations following meticulous research before her wilderness adventure. She was supposed to neither scramble up a tree nor run, but instead lie motionless and silent on the ground. However, none of these insights were useful to Maria right now. Depleted of all her energy, her only hope was that the bear might eventually lose interest and leave. Whether it picked up on her terrified cries or not, the bear seemed to understand Maria's turmoil and sidled up to her. It took a moment to gauge the gravity of the situation before making its way to the edge of the water. At length, it swam towards the nearly drowned woman. Fear consumed Maria's heart, but she was too exhausted to swim further or fight back. She could sense the bear closing in and then felt its grasp on her body. With deliberate force, it pulled her onto the riverbank. Thereafter, Maria completely blacked out, oblivious to what ensued. When she eventually woke up, she found herself on the muddy banks of the river, drenched to the bone and shivering from the cold. Coughing up a considerable volume of water, Maria then caught sight of the bear. It was mere meters away, silently observing her, seemingly trying to ensure this human was safe. At first, Maria felt a surge of fear and pondered about fleeing. However, she then understood the bear hadn't intended to harm her. In reality, it had saved her life. Once the bear was assured of Maria's safety, it retreated into the forest. Witnessing this, Maria painfully pulled herself to her feet, trudging back to her campsite. Even though her search for the ibex and mushrooms remained unfruitful, she had experienced something far more profound than any of it. The encounter with the bear had taught Maria a life lesson she had been previously oblivious to. Visiting someone's house and discovering something unusual is not an everyday occurrence, is it? Well, if you visited the Schneemann residence, you'll understand the astonishment people feel. What's so shocking, you may ask? Well, Anne, the resident of the house, coexists with a lion. She has reared it as her companion. Could you imagine that? She holds an affinity for a dog, and these animals genuinely have an affection for each other. Could you believe it? You may be questioning the reasons behind an animal enthusiast holding close a remarkable lion in her household, treating it with the familiarity of a domesticated cat. What does their day-to-day existence look like? Where does her origin lie? And what of her family? They never provided any input on her unique choice of companion. The woman who attends to this extraordinary creature is Schneemann. Her home is situated close to Bella Bella in Watertown, nestled in the heart of South Africa. Since her early years, Schneemann has shown a vibrant love for the animal kingdom. Alongside one spring season, she offered refuge to a baby lion whose need for care and security was dire. Hence, she embraced the responsibility. Upon accepting the responsibility for the young lion, she quickly discerned that this was not a simple job. She discovered the demanding nature of caring for an animal this size. Yet she didn't dive into this unprepared. Sneeman already had some experience, lending her the skills and knowledge necessary to maintain a lion's health and happiness in a home environment. Under her nurturing care, young Timba became part of her balanced, loving family. Timba was no different from other typical family pets. He came with a streak of mischief. His rebellious behavior and fondness for disobedience often tested his owner's patience. A perfect example of this is his recurrent episodes of sneaking food from the kitchen, almost mimicking the pranks of a common house cat. However, Timba did have a redeeming quality. As a cub, he would often assist with various tasks around the house. He was brought on board due to his manageable size and the undeniable charm of his youthful cuteness. Over time, though, Timba's natural growth began to pose challenges as he developed into an enormous lion. Since his upbringing involved daily walks with his owner and her dog, Timba became naturally protective and developed an untamed affection for Anne. To a certain extent, he began to view her as his mother figure. This display of affinity surfaced noticeably when visitors arrived at their homes. Timba would grow jealous whenever there were guests in the household. He would strategically position himself between Anne and her visitors, proving his attachment to her. With Anne's deep love for her unusual collection of pets, she consistently tried to ensure their happiness. However, the animal's intense affection for her sometimes led to feelings of envy, stirring occasional conflicts. This could particularly strain relationships. The issue of pet jealousy regularly surfaced, making it a matter of debate as to who gets to cuddle with Anne on the furniture. Anne openly mentioned that Timba is not known to back down when faced with a challenger trying to divert her attention. In various interviews, she confided in her audience that he sought every bit of her attention that he could secure, all while fondly speaking of her lion and her dog. A myriad of intriguing tales are always at her disposal. The battle between dogs and cats can often reach feverish heights, serving as a norm we've all encountered. Hence, conflicts between Anne's dog and Timba are common, leaving me pondering on solutions to this conventional conundrum between the dogs and lions. She lets on. Timba tends to find comfort, lounging in my lap, leaving the other individual on the separate couch feeling somewhat excluded, exhibiting a worried look. She further elucidates. Understanding the futility of engaging in a debate with an immense lion that has adapted to domestication in Anne's abode is key here. Hence, he's grown to be a pro in the art of nestling comfortably on the sofa, an adeptness Timba has honed to absolute precision. Simply put, he's adept. Gradually, he paves his way onto the couch, wedging himself between me and the other occupant, a notion that gives him a sense of joyous privilege. With the rigorous training aimed at transforming him from a wild creature to a domestic companion, Timba's behavior can often defy understanding. He was a feline with a fondness for warm, intimate moments, staying snugly ensconced with others. Taking into account his adroitness, Timba held a particular affection for Anne's warmth, so he invariably ended up surrounded by her warmth. Anne often pulled a leg on her possessive pet lion with an amusing conjecture. She shared her belief that lions could make excellent pets for her father, drawing knowledge from her experience parenting Timba. The prospect of getting a lion as a pet would thrill my dad since it could serve our family by warding off potential suitors, she humorously remarked. Timba was always adept at maintaining a respectful distance between him and Anne, and excelled at it. Recognizing a lion's inherent ferocious nature, people frequently harbored reservations about Timba's upbringing and instincts. As Timba's journey into full adulthood commenced, what possible changes could ensue? Do drop a subscription to our channel and switch on the notifications to stay tuned to more such exciting tales. Let's journey back to our story now. Having been raised amongst a multitude of animals, Anne found this fairly commonplace, which led to minimal contemplation about her pet cat's lion identity. One would naturally question her rationale behind adopting such an extraordinary pet. Adding to that, she had a warm, inviting circle of friends and family who, over time, had grown increasingly fond of Timba. However, to distant neighbors, their apprehensions are justified, considering Timba's inherent identity as a potentially dangerous creature. Anne's neighbors are constantly taken aback to discover that she frequently interacts with an enormous white lion. This is Anne's perception of their surprise. She revealed that there was an initial sense of fear that overtook most of her loved ones. Yet they became accustomed to it, seeing as Timba was as domesticated as any house cat could be, because Timba demonstrates good behavior. They have figured out not to pay him too much heed. Her family and friends have learned to tolerate his presence. They would often come over for a cup of coffee. When they chance upon him, they would share some tasty snacks with him. Anne divulged in interviews. Her friends and family had become familiarized with her large feline since Timba was a well-mannered pet. They quickly deciphered how to behave around him. But some people had a misconception that Timba was a menace, and it was difficult to change their minds, regardless of how harmless her pet was. Her neighbors continued to fear Timba. She said that an individual living near her residence was astounded to see his neighbor harboring a lion as a pet. They still react with bewilderment when they see her play with Timba. Her neighbors occasionally express their worry. Everyone was fascinated by Anne's endeavors. It's a common sight to see drivers slow down when they catch a glimpse of Anne. Having a lion for a pet is considered unconventional. It seems there's another surprising story that Anne has to share. It's about something from her past. Timba wasn't the only unconventional animal Anne had adopted. In reality, she had another strange animal as a pet before this. What could it be? How shocking could that be? Anne had another peculiar aspect of her life she wanted to share. Timba was the final wild animal Anne, a fervent animal lover, adopted. She began to care for other wild animals in 2009. She started a farm and began taking in various farm animals, with her parents' aid. Anne had a clear vision that she wanted to help animals in need. She had always been certain about her purpose in life. After starting her farm, she realized she had found her life's work. She knew she wanted to do more, so she pushed ahead and applied to the Department of Nature Conservation. Given that Anne had spent her lifetime working with animals, she possessed the skills necessary to handle the most dangerous creatures. After setting up her farm, she applied for a license to the Department of Nature Conservation. In no time at all, Anne was granted a permit. This allowed her the privilege to adopt and look after wild animals. Anne was not apprehensive about the possibility that these animals could pose a threat to her. On the contrary, she was thrilled to be able to help these vulnerable wild animals. She radiated excitement after deciding to adopt them, as she described it. Feeling an inherent sense of accomplishment, she found solace in sheltering these creatures. For her, this interaction was therapeutic, and unknowingly, it marked the beginning of a new chapter in her life, fueled by passion rather than mere intrigue. As she shared, her emotional bond with these creatures came naturally, especially since she took them in when they most needed help. However, she was also aware that these creatures could not stay with her indefinitely since they were essentially creatures of the wild. Despite her deep love for these creatures, she needed to accept the reality of setting them free eventually. With a heavy heart, she inferred, she let the love for each being guide her. Seeing her rescued animals healthy and setting them free triggered a profound maternal instinct in her. Yet saying goodbye to those adopted creatures who embodied a significant part of her life was never easy. Recognizing this emotional turmoil, she decided to introduce a change in her caretaking techniques. Determined not to let go of the prospective adoptions, her solution lay in acquiring a permit, allowing her to provide a permanent home to these wild beings. With the permits granted, her day-to-day struggles ceased, particularly about Timba. Now she could tend to the delightful cub, providing him adequate care as he transformed into a mature lion. With time, the cub, who she last took under her wing, was no longer an elegant white lion cub. However, the inexplicable bond between them remained strong. The affection this creature felt for her was evident, much like the humorous and unique instances she often shared regarding her feline friend, Timba. Accustomed to being the center of her attention, Timba was fiercely possessive and prone to jealousy. Such traits posed a social challenge for her, as most people hesitated to approach her. Eventually, though, Timba did adapt to her having a partner and accepted him as part of their little family. Surprisingly, in comparison to her previous pets, Timba was far less spoiled. According to her, the other cat she hosted was more of a demanding creature. She noted how the initial group of lions she raised had the run of the house, including the furniture and swimming pool. Giving her a new perspective about herself, the first wild cat she took in had a lasting impact on her life. Unveiling her true passion, these feline companions steered her towards a life experience she had never envisioned. On this exceptional journey, she did more than just live comfortably. She also became a safe haven for animals who were desperately in need of rescue. Fearlessness and immense love have become her distinct character traits when dealing with her cherished companions. Whenever they require attention or assistance, she indefatigably provides for them. Her life revolved around them, yet she never fully let her guard down. One cannot fully let one's guard down around lions, as they possess strong, predatory instincts and oftentimes act on them. She spoke of the great caution that she practices. Trusting as she is, she believes her lions would never assault her out of wrath. Despite having numerous scratches and bruises from their interaction, she dedicates a considerable amount of time to them and holds on to the belief that they would never intentionally harm her. If she should get injured, she wouldn't mind, and likens herself to any cat owner, enduring their felines' playful scratches. Not just a caretaker of lions, she perceives them as her own. This sentiment often bewilders many. However, it is her reality, something that has assimilated into her existence. Drawing parallels with other pet owners, she points out that the animals that roam the wilderness, even when she's alone with them, could instantly become perilous should they harbor any ill intentions. However, she continuously dedicates her efforts to providing them with a nurturer's love and an improvised home. What would you do if faced with such a terrifying yet awe-inspiring moment? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated on our latest adventures.